In the US, in 2022, police killed 1,201 people. In China, that number is 0. Oh, wait, nope, I read that wrong. 0 people killed by police since 2019, a year when 2 people were killed. 2 people in 5 years.
State-sanctioned Chinese program in which prisoners of conscience, meaning they are political prisoners, are executed for their organs. Every year, an estimated 60 to 90,000 transplants are carried out as part of a nationwide industry worth more than 800 million pounds. In June 2021, the United Nations stated that the victims were religious minorities, including Falun Gong practitioners and Uyghurs, who are held in detention centers across China. These people are arbitrarily arrested, detained in camps, tortured, face sexual violence, disappear while in detention, and are murdered on a vast scale for their organs. But hey, America has more prisoners, I guess. China just doesn't classify them as prisoners. Now, second thought, recently, 8 days ago, last week, put out a video called We Need to Talk About Authoritarianism. And I thought, last stream, you know what? I'll make the video on Orwell's warning on authoritarianism, on fascism, before, as a primer to this. Like as a companion piece, you know? Part 1. What is it? What is Orwell's warning and how has it manifested? And I say, it's manifested quite well. Second thought, I don't think he likes Orwell that much, you know? So I don't think we're going to get the same kind of scrutiny here. And it says authoritarianism.
This episode is brought to you by Ground News.
Ground News. Who are they? Ground News. I've heard that before. About. Thank you for this. I am highly suspect as soon as this happens. Ground News Wiki, perhaps? No. Whatever.
Authoritarianism. The practice of eating only people who have published books. Wait, that's not right. Authoritarianism. Truly one of the words of all time. A decadent 7 syllables long and wonderfully vague. If you've ever had a conversation about politics, and if you're watching this channel, I'm sure you have, you've likely...
Vague? How is it vague? Authoritarianism. Being authoritarian. Ceding power in the hands of few, using violence to enact your rule if people go against it. Not having democracy. It's not vague. You might say it's nebulous. You might say, not nebulous. You might say it's broad. You might say that it's but vague, diffuse. No. To enforce the enforcement or advocacy of a strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. This is not vague. This is very, very poignant. I know why he's doing it. The point that okay, I can see the whole video in front of me now. I can see it all. He's going to go, oh, they call this authoritarian, but they don't call that authoritarian. They call Russia's lack of democracy authoritarian, but they don't call what America is doing authoritarian. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
heard someone use the term, or maybe you've even used it yourself. It's
Frequently.
popular in pretty much every corner of the mainstream political spectrum. Liberals, conservatives, the dreaded centrists, and even some lefty groups like anarchists and libertarian socialists. But what does it mean? And what gives it so much weight in the political discourse? Well, that's what this video is about. We've got a pretty poor understanding of what authority is here in the West, but I bet we can fix that. Let's start with the generally accepted definition. Authoritarianism, favoring or enforcing strict obedience to authority, especially that of the government, at the expense of personal freedom. Okay, this is a pretty bad definition if we're being honest.
No.
It mentions the government in there, but doesn't really commit to being political, just kinda, when you want people to follow the rules.
No. 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 Not even close. And it's not a political thing. You can be authoritarian without being political. A CEO, like Elon Musk on Twitter, authoritarian. He's favoring or enforcing. He's enforcing strict obedience to his authority at the expense of the personal freedoms of others on Twitter. Like it's personal freedom in a private company. Like it's not perfect, but yeah. I don't know. Whatever.
That's not super helpful when we're trying to nail down a heavily used term, and one that deals with some serious topics. Okay, so what if we expand it to include...
Wait, okay. We're not even 2 minutes in. We're not even 1.5 minutes in. Does every word has to be like catering to his specific predilections? Like, is it? Can there be no broad terms like fascism? If this if he had talked about fascism here, I'd absolutely be on his side. Absolutely, it's a nebulous, hard to define. A political far-right movement. Fascism. Sure. But authoritarianism, the police is authoritarian in its structure. The military is authoritarian in its structure. It is not a political body because of that. Even, I'm sure, anarchists would recognize that. Paramilitary groups recognize this. You cannot at all allow for dissent against your commanding officer then and there. You can't allow for mutiny to fester. You have to clamp it down. That's personal freedom being robbed from the individual at the expense, what was it? Strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom, perfectly exemplified in the military, and it is not a political statement or political act because of that.
Include how people generally use the term.
People generally use the term. Yeah, fuck that. I don't care if people use it wrong. If people are like, no, the military isn't authoritarian. It's just political. It's a political statement. No, it's not. No, stop that. Stop trying to force every word in your vocabulary or in the vocabulary of the average individual in common parlance into your narrow set of politics, okay? Stop that. It's bad, and it doesn't lead to anything except for newspeak. I think this is going to be a newspeak definition of authoritarianism. That's Yeah. It's going to be a new speak definition of authoritarianism.
Generally speaking, when someone uses the word authoritarian...
Why is he so low res, by the way? Like, I have it on HD. I don't have premium, of course, but... Like, I have...
They are often...
You have 1.64 million followers, and you can't focus correctly, but you're not in focusing on the background. Seem to be... The shirt is in focus. Why isn't your face in focus? Why is it blurry? What is happening? What's the low resolution coming from? Huh? What's happening here? Talk to me, second thought. Talk to me.
But not always, using it as a term to demonize a system that is different from their own, regardless of the facts. They're using it as a synonym for totalitarian, a word you don't really hear much anymore.
A system of government that is centralized and dictatorial and requires complete subservience to the state. Totalitarianism is authoritarian, but authoritarianism isn't totalitarianism. All cars have 4 wheels. Not all cars. Come on, work in there. Not all everything with 4 wheels are cars.
It's sort of fallen by the wayside in favor of authoritarian. Kind of like using the word commie as a slur has been superseded by tanky in the last few years.
This is why he's doing this video, by the way. This is why he's doing the video.
Same idea, different era.
No. My girlfriend's nephew's when he was younger, he's still very, very young, but when he was a toddler, when he was doing something wrong, we went no, and then so he learned that, okay, when they don't want me to do something, they go nay. So he started, because he hasn't got the coordination in, so he can't point and shake his finger at the same time. So instead, when he knows he's doing something wrong, or he used to do this, he's getting better because he's getting older. He put up his finger with one hand and then went That's all he's so fucking cute. Really, really cute. I love that kid. Absolutely. So
These words, authoritarian and totalitarian, have been leveled at fascism and communism, often in a direct attempt to conflate the two. This is largely due to the US's extreme anti-communism.
I know I'm pausing a fuck ton, but he's so dense with his ignorance or his obfuscation. Who is the target audience here? This is not a general audience. This audience. His audience isn't intended to be liberals, intended to be centric, intended to be those on the fence. It's not even intended for people who are informed. This is intended for an audience who is uninformed. An audience primed to go along with him. He wants people who are already left-wing. Like most of the videos, I'm sure. Like, how are they so wealthy? We had shock therapy. Why the US is not a democracy. Like, were the Nazis socialists? He's probably gonna. I'm sure he's gonna be correct in this. In all the videos I've seen. So I'm sure most of the videos have good information that I can agree with, good analysis that I can agree with. Like, is everything turning into Uber? Yeah, I can see how you can watch this channel and not be a tanky. But then he sneaks in these kinds of videos, which is meant to prime you for tankyism, for authoritarian communism, for fascism. That's the point.
Communism post-World War II, to the point that they'd lump in their former friends, the people without whom the Allies could not have won the war, with what most people believe to be the greatest evil in history. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's all well and good.
Hold on. Like, how do I word this without being clipped? without people having the ability to clip me. Nazi Germany killed Jews. Okay? Nazi Germany killed Jews. So after the war, UK sold land they owned. Or if they gave it away, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Gave Jewish people, displaced Jewish people who wanted a place where they can feel safe, plot of land in Palestine that was controlled by the UK. They just gave it to them and said, here, build your land here. Build your nation. We're going to support you with armored vehicles, with weaponry, with money. Okay, so you can rebuild a state where Jewish people can feel safe. And I understand that sentiment. I would probably even have supported it if I was alive back then. And even Palestinians weren't that opposed to it back then. However, does this mean that I can't criticize it because of that? Oh, they're criticizing the former friends. Oh, they're not grateful to Russia. They're not grateful to the Soviet Union. Fuck you. What is there to be grateful? Great. They helped kill Nazis. Awesome. Now let's talk about the gulags. Let's talk about how they had, was it one out of every 2 or every 3 soldier had a gun even? And they sent everyone into battle. And when the one comrade died who had a gun, another comrade picked up that gun from them. That was the idea. Yeah, we might not have the equipment for it, but we have the manpower. So just go in there. If they die, you pick up the gun and you start shooting. And if you try to flee, if you try to retreat, we shoot you in the back. Why? No, we can't criticize them because they killed Nazis, apparently. So did America. They still had segregation. Long after World War II. Can't we criticize that? Churchill, amazing leader during World War II. Amazing leader. Fucking a fucking conservative. Deep conservative. Authoritarian even, you might call him. Unless you're second thought, I guess. Because it's too nebulous. He wasn't a totalitarian. He was just authoritarian. Like, we can't criticize our allies? Fuck that shit.
People use a political term vaguely to demonize their opponents. Big surprise. But we still need some specifics. What exactly makes a state authoritarian?
Right. What was the definition? The enforcement or advocacy, in this case, enforcement of strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. Does that fit the Soviet Union? Maybe, I don't know.
Well, if you have a scroll through the comments of just about any political video that talks about socialism, you'll find people ready with their pre-written list of objections, usually bundled under the prime objection, that's authoritarian.
And people use the term wrongly, but that's because the term is nebulous. No, people use the term wrong. Talk about that. Don't say the term is vague.
Things on that list include the existence of large prisons or labor
Yeah,
camps,
sure.
a covert police force, state media, a strong
If you mean he shows NPR here.
of large prisons or labor camps.
This
a
is
covert
this
police
is
force,
interesting.
State media.
NPR is not state media. It is state-owned media. It's not state-run media. Big fucking difference. In the NPR is allowed to criticize the government. They do it frequently. They're not even that much funded by the state. NPR funding. Comes from dues and fees paid by member stations. Underwriting the corporate sponsor and annual grants from the public-funded corporations for public broadcasting, most of its member stations are owned by non-profit organizations, including public school districts, colleges, and universities. NPR operates independently of any government or corporation and has full control of its content. When we say state media, we mean something very, very specific here, which again, he undermines his entire video now by including this. Are media outlets that are under financial and or editorial control of the state or government, directly or indirectly. There are different types of state and government media. State-controlled or state-run media are under editorial control or influenced by the state or government. Under editorial control or influenced by the state or government. That is the point. Dylan Burns talked about this when he, right after the Prigozhin coup attempt, I guess, insurrection against the government, which I don't know why, but he trusted Putin. Of all people to trust Putin, Prigozhin should know better, you know? But he didn't. He's a moron, obviously. He's a fascist authoritarian. Of course he didn't know better. He's stupid. What happened in state media inside Russia, RT, Sputnik, and is there... Yeah, TASS. None of them, and I mean none of them, wrote a damn shit about this insurrection from Prigozhin. They didn't write anything until Putin made a statement condemning it. Because what Prigozhin was doing smartly was that he said, this is not Putin, this is everyone around him. This is the people who have lured him into the trap that is the war in Ukraine. The Defense Department, Shoigun, all of those people, they are the problem. Not Putin, they. So they didn't know, because they didn't know how Putin... If he had gone after Putin, I'm sure they would have condemned it and talked, you know, but he didn't, so that's smart, but they didn't know how to write it, because Putin hadn't made a statement. If they had written about it as an insurrection against the government, and then Putin comes out and supports it and says, oh, I have actually been informed by Prigozhin, I've seen the evidence and he is correct, and we need to remove these people from office. We need to take care of them like we do with the enemy of the state. They would have been thrown in jail possibly themselves. So they didn't. That's what we mean when we say state media, not fucking NPR.
Media, a strongman leader, censorship, that sort of thing. And to be fair, all those things do sound scary, and none of them are ideal. I think we can all agree that we'd love to live in a society where prisons didn't need to exist. But
That's never gonna happen. That's a pipe dream at best.
let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Emphasis on dream.
Before we go any further, I want to emphasize that I'm not trying to attack anyone here. The objection to authoritarianism is present in a lot of different camps. People may define it a little differently. For example, a libertarian might call seatbelt laws authoritarian, while a liberal might consider the influence of the church on the government authoritarian. Meanwhile, my anarchist friends...
He's not entirely wrong here, but I'd say... I'd actually say that in some sense it is authoritarian. Like in the broadest sense, seatbelt laws are authoritarian. Authoritarianism isn't good or bad, just like liberalism or liberal principles, I should probably say, not the political movement liberalism or the philosophical, but just the liberal principles, personal freedoms aren't always democracy. Let's actually just use democracy specifically. Isn't always a good thing. Voting on should we have an ethnic cleansing? That's not good. That is bad. That is real bad. But hey, we want more democracy, so we have to follow the will of the people. No. There needs to be restrictions on that. Just as there needs to be some restrictions on the personal freedoms. There needs to be some level of authoritarianism in a country. But when we condemn something for being authoritarian, when we say that's authoritarian, we mean that's bad because it's authoritarian, because they are limiting our freedoms here. Not that authoritarianism blanket is bad. Just that it's bad in that instance.
Are yelling from the back of the room that the very existence of a state is authoritarian, and we need to...
And by the way, when we say that the state is authoritarian, we mean people don't have personal freedoms under this state. It is contextual. That's probably why he thinks it's diffuse, because it's contextual.
Bedtime. Again, teasing, no offense intended. Okay, we all on the same page? Authoritarianism is a red flag.
No.
For a lot of people, and there are some specific objections we can consider. So, let's consider them. Here's what we're going to do for the rest of the video. First, we'll look at the list of objections as understood by liberals. And I mean that in the broadest sense. Liberals as in subjects of liberal states, not in the conservative versus liberal sense. Then we'll look at those same objections as understood by the left. Again, pretty broadly speaking. Basically everyone from social democrats and beyond. Then finally, we'll consider a better way to understand authority and authoritarianism. Sound good?
I am most interested in the third one, okay? Not gonna lie.
All right, liberal friends. I've got a pretty good idea of the kinds of places you feel are authoritarian. Top of the list, Soviet Union, the big one. Perhaps the target of the most intense smear campaign in history. Then we've got Cuba. China, North Korea, and likely a handful of other projects. But I think it's safe to say that these are the big ones.
Whoa.
North Korea, and likely a handful of other projects.
This guy's cool. Just because he's he's cool. He's good. He fought for democracy? Oh, what's his name though? I don't even remember the specific country. African socialist leader, military. Oh, you know what I can do? I can actually go like this. I'm gonna images. Oh, I actually... okay. Thomas Sankara, that's the name. Thomas Sankara. I actually found him. Burkina Faso, that's the nation. A coup d'etat organized by Blaise, blah, blah, blah. Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, leader Jerry Rawlings, the president of the Democratic and Popular Revolution. The ideology of revolution was defined as Sankara's anti-imperialism speeches, blah, blah. The first American Association. Like, this guy did a lot of good things. I have to read up more on him, but I have respect for him and from the things that I actually know about him. I don't have enough information to say if this, but I have my suspicions. Since this is Second Thought and NPR and state media, I have my suspicion here.
But I think it's safe to say that these are the big ones. When you look at any of these projects, it's not difficult to see the one thing they all have in common. They're all socialist. And when you see this, it's not entirely unreasonable to come to the conclusion.
Imagine calling North Korea or China socialist. Or the Soviet Union socialist, Imagine.
That authoritarianism is a core feature of socialism. We'll address this a bit more thoroughly in a few minutes, but suffice it to say that in the West, we may have a slightly biased opinion on the matter. No fault of our own.
Biased.
We've just been subjected to nearly 100 years of Red Scare propaganda at this point. Everything we're taught growing up in the imperial core, especially in the US, points us towards the conclusion that communism is evil and capitalism is righteous. But here's
the damage that the Soviet Union, the USSR, that Stalin and Lenin and all of these leaders have done to the socialist movement is immeasurable. The setback that socialism has taken due to that and to the refusal of authoritarian leftists, tankies, can't be understated. It's going to take generations of work from more liberal leftists, from more actual socialists, pardon me, to undo that damage.
Here's the part where I'm going to have to ask you to be willing to consider some unpleasant truths. And I don't say these things to engage in whataboutism or because I'm anti-American or something. Quite the contrary. I believe that in order for any country to live up to the standards it sets for others, it needs to soberly reflect on the facts. And the facts indicate that everything we're taught about these awful authoritarian socialist countries, we are also guilty of, and often to a far greater degree. Let me elaborate.
No. Our media is completely free to criticize the government. Our media is not beholden to the government's whims on whether it supports or denounces a certain cause. I do not fear death. I do not fear getting jailed. I do not fear reprisal in any way, shape, or form from advocating against the king, against the government, against the police, against the military. And you know what, second thought? Neither do you. You sit there in your this is the ivory tower mentality, by the way. This is fucking ivory tower, our ivory tower mentality. You sit there with your liberal freedoms and you go, And you watch people suffering. Tremendous suffering in the world due to these authoritarians, these fascists, and you go, we do it worse. No, we fucking don't. I'd rather live, you know what? I'd rather be a black man in America than a North Korean citizen. At least a black man in America can criticize the government. Now, he might. I'm not going to understate the troubles that he might get into because he does that. He might get a knock on the door from the FBI, you know. There might be something there. But everyone recognizes that it's wrong. But if it's from a Eastern person, if a Chinese experiences that, if a North Korean, if a Russian holds up a white sign outside of government and they get whipped away, whatever, by police, well, we do it worse. No, we fucking don't. I just want to show one. There was a video recently released by from inside Russia. Can't find it. Whatever. Where they show that, hey, we live in shit. They point to the ground and like, do you see this brown shit on the ground? That's not rat spillings. That's not like gray water. That's actual poop. Because the pipes from the toilets flushed down into were leaking. And it leaked from the ceiling down to the ground. Where else would it leak? Like, and then they go, oh, we've gotten a mail, paper mail here, snail mail, saying, in 7 years we have scheduled repairs in your building. 7 years they're going to have to live in shit. Without access to healthcare, without access to, like, the West is so much better in every conceivable way than anything, nearly anything, you'll find in Russia, especially North Korea. It's not even comparable.
One thing that rarely gets the attention it deserves is how we talk about authoritarianism. And I mean that literally, like the very words we use. Take the DPRK. We never hear about the government of North Korea. We hear about the Kim regime. This is common when Westerners talk about non-capitalist governments, or even capitalist ones that aren't
non-democratic. Non-democratic. Like it is actually like it's right there. It's like
vassal states of the U.S. They have a regime.
Whoa.
We hear about the Kim regime. This is common when Westerners talk about non-capitalist governments, or even capitalist ones that aren't vassal states of the U.S. They have a regime, we and our allies have a government. The way we talk about different systems goes a long way towards coloring our perception of them. People criticize labor camps, or secret police, or any number of other scary authoritarian words. But here's the thing, we have those too. And if you look at the data, often to...
Yeah, you do. In America, where's the labor camp at the moment? Just going to throw out the country here. Norway. Where's the labor camp in Norway? Where's the secret police in Norway?
To a far greater extent than any socialist project in history. We just don't call them by those names. We don't have secret police, we have plainclothes officers.
No. These are two different, very, very, very different things. And the plainclothes officers are undercover, but they identify themselves during arrest, for example. We know about they work for the regular police here. The secret police, a secret police, like again, it's just obfuscation here. Or political police, interesting, are police, intelligence, or security agencies that engage in covert operations against a government's political, religious, or social opponents and dissidents. This is not about the KGB, for example. Let's just take the KGB. The KGB's and secret police in general point is not to uphold law. It's to uphold political order, not order maybe, but political adherence to the state. That's the point. You need to be scared at every turn that you might get reported by the secret police because you don't support the government, because you're critical of the government. That's not really this. That's not the plainclothes officer's point, is it? Second thought. However, under Trump, I believe that DHS, with police, BLM. This is a secret police. Under Trump, there was a secret police. But they weren't plainclothes officers who operate in plain clothes to not get detected and to surveil criminals.
Or the intelligence community. We don't have we have plainclothes officers or the intelligence community.
Nobody, and I mean nobody, calls secret intelligence so not secret intelligence. What was the word he used?
We don't have secret police. We have plainclothes officers or the intelligence community.
Intelligence. Nobody thinks that the intelligence community is a secret police. Two completely different things. Intelligence community, CIA. We have in Sweden, we have FRA. In China, I don't know what China's intelligence community is called, their agency, whatever, but they all have it. Gather intelligence on foreign adversaries, on foreign governments. They might, at worst, I might say, I might qualify, they will cultivate a source, cultivate an agent within the country they are surveilling, within a country they are monitoring. That's not the secret police. You fucking MI5. Is it MI5? MI6? MI6 is not a secret police. They're not trying to monitor and make sure that the people are in line with the government in terms of political thoughts. Like I fucking.
We don't have gulags, we have detention centers.
Which people have called. Gulags is very different. People have called these concentration camps. Why? They're camps where you concentrate people. Gulag was a work camp. Big fucking difference. The better analogy to a gulag in America is just the prison system, not the detention centers. Nobody there is making license plates, you know? Nobody there is working. They're just being detained without hygiene, you know, in horrible, horrible, horrible circumstances. It's not a gulag. They're not working. They're not making shit. Forced labor camps. This is not a forced labor camp.
Which, by the way, housed far more inmates than the Soviet Union ever did. That's a lot of people, though. Okay. And of course, we don't have slave labor, we have penal labor.
The first time that I actually agree with him. Correct. Okay, yeah. Slavery was never outlawed. It was limited in America. But why are you only focusing on America here, my dude? Why not Europe? Are we not worthy of your condemnation? Or do we not maybe have penal labor? Maybe? Is that why you can really fit this thing that you're doing into that?
We put inmates to work manufacturing hand sanitizer during a pandemic or fighting fires because enshrined in the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, slavery is illegal except as punishment for a crime. And a lot of the time, that crime is just being poor. A parking ticket you couldn't pay. Getting caught with the same drug a rich person uses, but you don't have the money to buy yourself out of trouble. We don't have a Ministry of War, we have a Department of Defense.
Okay. Okay. Nobody condemns China or Russia even, or North Korea or any other authoritarian government, or any other fascist government for that point, for having a military. Everyone understands. Yeah, they have a military. Like, they're using a different word for it, and
despite never once fighting a defensive war.
Not true. Not fucking true. Like I said earlier, World War II, if anything, was a defensive war. Or does he just memory hold that? He ignores that because, hey, that's Russia. That's Russia's doing, you know, Soviets doing. Not America. America did nothing there. America just stayed home and did nothing. Ignoring that they shipped fucking military aid to Russia to help them with the war. D-Day. They were attacked, and then they entered the war with their own military. That's fucking defensive. Whatever.
Every military action taken by the United States, from
Post-World War II.
bombing hospitals to drone striking foreign citizens, is given the cover of defense. We don't have state media or propaganda, we just have news.
And of course he's showing Tucker Carlson here. But yeah. Yeah? I've already shown this with NPR. Yeah? Fox News might be the closest you're getting to state media. But it's not. It's political media. It's adherence to a party, not the state. While state media is adherence to the state. Like blind adherence to the state. Fox News has blind adherence, and not even actually, in some cases, to the party. Like, very different things.
Those news outlets are, of course, all owned by the same corporate interests who funnel millions of dollars a year into government pockets to make sure that
corporate media, corporate news.
Profits are secure, and their anchors dutifully repeat the ruling class's ideological positions.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Their guys are dictators, ours are presidents.
Or prime ministers. Yeah? Yes? They're dictators because they don't have elections. Or open elections, you know?
Their state has a regime, ours has a government.
You've already
We're
said
free
that.
and happy, they're oppressed and miserable.
Yeah.
Our nuclear arsenal is for deterrence. Theirs is a threat to global peace.
Yes. Yes. Apart from outside of World War II, when only America had nuclear weapons, by the way, since then, the world order has been that you can only nuke on your own soil. When was the last time America threatened to nuke? When was the last time any Western nation threatened to nuke another nation?
Despite the US being the only country on Earth to have ever
whatever.
used nuclear weapons. And we did it twice. On civilians. On purpose.
Yeah.
We
Horrible.
have a democracy, they have a dictatorship. Despite, by all accounts, places like Cuba and China having far more representation and opportunity for democratic involvement than places like the US.
No. Flat out, no.
So the way we talk about government structures, characteristics, and
Go to China. Like how Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping. He tried to oppose him. Good luck. Good fucking luck.
actions matters. Without even knowing it, we can end up falling prey to some very subtle, very sophisticated propaganda that prime
Yeah, I'm watching it. I am eyeballs deep right now in propaganda.
people we've never met, whose economic and government structures we know nothing about, and with whom we share far more in common than we do with our own leaders. Okay,
Yeah. But we're not talking about that. You're not talking about the everyday person. You're not talking about worker to worker, which, by the way, and I mean every fucking worker in the world deserves democracy. Deserves liberty. I have more in common with my leader or leaders, with my politicians here in Sweden. I have more in common with Joe fucking Biden than I do Xi Jinping. Than I do any fucking leader of these nations that he's talking about. The leaders, Biden, the leaders of Western nations have more in common with the common working man of their own nation than they do a dictator. Yes, I have more in common with a worker, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the government. But again, you're obfuscating. This is pure, undistilled propaganda. Damn.
Fine, but those are just words. Who cares what we call our and government structures we know nothing about, and with whom we share far more in common.
And again, know nothing about. Fuck you. You know nothing about it. You have no idea. But I do. Lots of people do. So fuck you.
Than we do with our own leaders. Okay, fine, but those are just words. Who cares what we call our stuff? All right, let's talk specifics.
No. I care what we call our stuff. I care that the language we use to describe these nations, to describe these dictators, describe these authoritarian fascist nations. I'm not calling Cuba fascist here, by the way. Russia, China, North Korea specifically. Fascist. Authoritarian. Dictatorships. These words mean stuff. They might not mean something to you, but they mean stuff to me, okay?
In a striking 2012 article by Adam Gopnik called The Caging of America, the author notes that, quote, overall, there are now more people under correctional supervision in America, more than 6 million, than were in the Gulag under Stalin at its height. And this is coming from an American writer with a thoroughly liberal worldview.
Imagine that. Imagine a liberal writer in Western media, in the New Yorker, how do you say it? Not powerhouse, an institution of American media calling out the state so openly, so brazenly, without reprisal. Imagine. Huh. But he just said that we are worse? Bruh. It's so blatantly obvious to anyone with two brain cells to rub together, because you're going to lose the other one, okay? You're going to need two to keep one if you're watching this video.
It's a poignant comparison because, as we all know,
yeah, it is.
Stalin, gulags, and the Soviet Union are the trifecta of what the average person sees as authoritarianism. The fact that we're doing worse than...
Hitler? Are you forgetting Hitler? No, he's just ignoring it. Whatever.
That, even if you buy the inflated numbers of widely debunked books like the Black Book of Communism, should tell you something. And fun fact, the CIA wrote a report in the 50s that the whole Stalin strongman thing was largely a myth. It was just a very useful myth to the capitalist powers, so why not perpetuate it?
But he doesn't give me source here. CIA myth of Stalin strongman. What do you say? Which year?
Fun fact, the CIA wrote a report in the 50s that the whole Stalin
in the 50s.
strongman thing was largely a myth.
CIA 1950s. Stalin strongman myth. But I'm getting 50s. These are CIA sources. I don't trust him. at all. CIA report from the 50s on Stalin. How to domesticate institution, blah, blah, blah. CIA. No match. And of course, this is... But again, he didn't... Crimes of Stalin era? Like, he didn't give me a source here. He didn't even flash anything on the screen. So I'm not gonna take his word for it at all. And of course. Even in Stalin's time, there were collective leadership. The Western idea of a dictator within the communist setup is exaggerated. Misunderstandings on the subject are caused by lack of comprehension of the real nature and organization of the communist power structure. Stalin, although holding wide powers, was merely the captain of a team, and it seems obvious that Khrushchev will be the new captain. However, it does not appear that any of the present leaders will rise to the stature of Lenin and Stalin, so that it will be safer to assume that developments in Moscow will be along the lines of what is called collective leadership, unless Western policies force the Soviets to streamline their power organization. The present situation is the most favorable from the point of view of upsetting the communist dictatorship since the death of Stalin. They're saying it's not as simple as Stalin holding all the power, and moving forward, it looks to be more decentralized, so to say. But they're recognizing here that Stalin and Lenin had immensely more power during their time. Like, it's not a... Again, what did he say exactly?
CIA wrote a report in the 50s that the whole Stalin strongman thing was largely a myth.
No, they didn't. Actually, they said the opposite. They said the Soviet Union isn't necessarily needing of a strongman leader, but it's not a myth. It's not a, he was a strong man. What the fuck?
It was just a very useful myth to the capitalist powers, so why not perpetuate it? But I know what you're thinking. Everybody knows the US has a thing for prisons. That's like one thing we could ease back on a little bit. That doesn't make the country authoritarian. Let's continue then. How about surveillance?
No, I'd call America authoritarian. I'd absolutely call America authoritarian. It is teetering on neo-fascism even. But it's not there yet, unlike Russia. Unlike Israel even, maybe soon. Maybe. But it's teetering there. But yeah, I'd call America authoritarian any day of the week. But again, who is he talking to here? Who is following second thought here? Ask yourself that. Who is he speaking to? Because he's not speaking a language, or he's not speaking to leftists here or socialists. Is he? Because any socialist, any lefty, any mildly progressive person with liberal tendencies would recognize America as having authoritarian characteristics. Especially after Bush. Or during Bush, I should say. Especially then. Disregarding the prison system, which pretty much everyone recognizes unless you're completely blinded by politics. Disregarding that. Post-Bush, the surveillance of Muslims, authoritarian. Stop and frisk in the 90s, authoritarian. Like everyone recognized it. Who is he talking to? His audience is ostensibly leftists. His audience comes to no small extent from Hassan. So why is he saying this? What's the point? He's trying to push his more liberally minded audience. Because as Keffels explained in her video, he's very coy about his actual beliefs. He doesn't talk about supporting China. And he hasn't still. He still hasn't said, I support the Chinese Communist Party. I support North Korea. All he said so far, and it's very dishonest of him, is we do the same thing. That's not supporting any of the things that's being done. That's minimizing the atrocities of dictators, of fascists. And that's the point. He seriously, he really wants his audience to not care about atrocities abroad. Because atrocities are happening here as well. That's the point. Like, do not mind the fascism of China, Soviet Union, of North Korea, of Russia, even though he's not saying it yet. Do not mind that, because we do it as well.
It's pretty widely believed that citizens of socialist states are the subject of extreme surveillance. But what if I told you that none of them hold a candle to the US?
Oh my god. Oh my god. I know what he's saying here. Whew. Oh boy. The difference, because he said, didn't he say the Soviet?
Surveillance. Pretty widely believed that citizens of socialist states are the subject of extreme surveillance. But what if I told you that none of them hold a candle to the US?
Again, he's obfuscating here completely. The big difference is, people in the West don't like it. People in the West have the ability to tell them to go fuck themselves. In China, I don't know about North Korea, because, I mean, they are not technologically advanced. They will come and arrest you if they hear something you're not supposed to say.
Don't believe me? Take a look at Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Thanks to this piece of legislation, every single person in the United States is the subject of incredibly intense scrutiny.
Yeah. Again. Well, how this unlike, like, China is still doing more. China is still doing more. Look at what happened to Naomi Wu. She had to disappear from public life 5 months ago. Partially because of what the Western media did. So fuck the Western media. Is it Vice, I believe? Fuck that. Yeah, she has big tits. But she's smart as fuck. She's a lesbian with a Uyghur. That's the name. Or that's the pronunciation. With a Uyghur Muslim is her partner. Like, she was detained by the fucking, not the secret police, but by the police, because she advocated for LGBTQ rights.
We have a mass surveillance program that allows for the collection of phone conversations, text messages, emails, web searches, and social media messages. Everything you do is being monitored. But wait, it's called the Foreign Surveillance Act.
You know what? Here in Sweden, and I am so fucking happy about this. We do, not this. We do have warrantless surveillance of our people as well, of citizens here. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And I can say that, and I can advocate for that to be removed. However, here's the thing. Corporations do not have to. They're not forced to hand over the records. That's the loophole. Whatever I do online is stored for a few months on a server, like the metadata. I get disgusting. I don't. Why? But I can understand to some extent. Like we don't want to have to go to, if we suspect someone of being criminal and we go to a court to ask for a warrant, we don't want to have to go to the person and alert them that we're looking into them. We want to go to their service provider, their internet service provider, or their phone service provider, or what have you, and ask them for the records instead. So I can understand, to some extent, having that. Sure. What police is doing, though, is disgusting. Because they're going to these corporations and they're saying, hey, we want their records. And the corporation goes, oh, well, here you go then. Because they own the record. And that's the... No. They shouldn't be able to be allowed to own the fucking records. They should just be stewards of it. Those records should still be owned by me, and housed by them. But that's not how it's set up at the moment. So corporations will just hand over the records freely to the police. Disgusting. I use Bahnhof. The only internet service provider in Sweden that asks for a warrant. They have a very simple form that the police has to fill out whenever they want a record, and it says, do you have a warrant? And they're not, police in Sweden aren't allowed to lie about that, by the way. And they fill out the form, and if it's no, they're not getting the records. I pay a bit more than the average person because of that. But I am happy to do so. Yeah, of course. There are two possibilities why you might have heard, if you're not from Sweden or Ukraine, actually, even, because they had, or they have even, an affiliation over there. They brought over the workers from there. They gave them visas to work in Sweden, if they wanted to. The reason you might know about Bahnhof is that they used to house, and they did house, the original servers for the Pirate Bay. That was them. They're currently, there was a big splash about it, housing the KFC secret recipe for their chicken wings. There's a big splash about it. They have a button that if they're getting raided, they can just smash it and it erases the data on the servers. That's why I pay a bit more. Good luck finding such a corporation in China. Good luck. Good fucking luck. in Russia, in North Korea, if you can get a computer even in North Korea, you know? Good fucking luck. And might I add, second thought, he's only focusing on where we're similar. He's only focusing on the most egregious aspects of American political culture, of American government. He doesn't focus on, for example, there's only one union you can join in China, and it's run by the Chinese state. Why doesn't he mention that? Might it be because there's no equivalent in the West that he can obfuscate around, you know? Probably.
So why are we in the crosshairs?
Yeah, because it's politician. It's the politicians are a politic, okay?
Well, it started out as a way to keep tabs on communications between U.S. citizens and foreign nationals deemed a threat of some kind. But over the last decade or so, the scope of the project has expanded dramatically. What was once strictly a
authoritarianism.
counterterrorism tool, which is already incredibly vague and dangerous, has now morphed into a domestic surveillance apparatus where the NSA provides this data to the CIA and the FBI, which they can use to open investigations into any person in the country without a warrant.
Yeah, disgusting.
But what if we want to give U.S. intelligence agencies the benefit of the doubt? They're just doing their job, right? If you're not a criminal, you have nothing to hide. According to a 2022 report, the FBI and CIA conduct millions of these backdoor searches for no legitimate reason. They've pulled data on family members, journalists, political commentators, even government officials. For what reason? Who knows? They want dirt on a politician they don't like, so they read their Twitter DMs. They saw you in a coffee shop and thought you were cute and asked the barista for your name. That's all they need. Some random intelligence creep can plug in your name, phone number, or email address and have access to years of your personal communications, web activity, address, personal details, all of it. No authoritarian regime in history has ever wielded that kind of surveillance power.
Yeah. It's the internet. Stalin and Hitler, the KGB and the secret police of Nazi Germany. It wasn't the SS. Nazi secret police. Gestapo. Like, they could only dream of having access to this data. They could only dream about it. The difference is, in the West, you have to search for it. And there's not enough, because there's a point of having access to this data for national security reasons or even criminal reasons, like I explained. But there needs to be protections in place. The difference is we can put protections in place. China would never.
Okay, dystopian prison population, largest surveillance apparatus in history, that all sounds pretty
But China has the same, but more and worse.
bad. But at least we have the freedom to criticize the government, right?
Yeah.
Secret police aren't going to come drag us away.
Under Trump they
Got
did.
some bad news for you there, too. U.S. police are the most vicious and unaccountable in the world by far. There are plenty of videos online of police arresting journalists, brutalizing peaceful protesters, even laughing about killing innocent people. I have a whole video on the subject, actually.
Yeah.
But here's
Again, you're talking to leftists that already know all this. Now talk about China.
the gist of it. According to ongoing reporting, U.S. police kill over 1,000 American citizens per year. 1,000 people, and I can hear the objection already. Yeah, well, some of those people were probably criminals.
Objection from who? Not your audience.
Police are not meant to be judge, jury, and executioner. They're meant to arrest people if they have to, and then hand them over to the judge, jury, and we really should talk about the executioner part. Open social media on any day of the week, and you'll see a story of an officer-involved shooting, where the media tries really hard to twist the reporting to make the cop sound less like a murderer. With body cameras often required these days, it's getting harder for them to hide their crimes, though they still try. Anyway, the bottom line is this. If we look at any other country on Earth, let's say China, the hot-button supposed authoritarian hellhole of the day, and we compare police violence stats, the US is far worse.
If you compare police violence stats, yeah. But that's because the people know that if they do not comply at every step of the way, they're gone. They're removed from society. They are memory hold, and they will never come back. They might even get tortured. They know this is a guarantee. It's not a guarantee in the West, even in America, for all its police authority, for all the indiscriminate killings by cops. It's not a guarantee. Like, no, China police. What legal powers do Chinese police have? According to the country's criminal procedure law, which came into effect on January 1st, 2013, China's police have wide-ranging powers that include the following. Criminal detention. Detention by police normally begins a formal process that leads to a formal arrest, which must be approved by the prosecutor, such as blah, 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 extraordinary circumstances. Arrest, restriction of personal liberties. You know what? A better example, though? Hong Kong. Can we get some? I'm just gonna do that. Let's see. Can we get a video maybe? BBC. A 12-year-old girl tackled by police. Look here. Look. Reminds me a lot. Police said she acted suspiciously during protests. The girl... Oh, wrong. The girl... Why can't I pause it? The girl said she was out to buy art supplies and panicked. Can I go up here maybe then? She and her brother were fined for breaking social distancing rules, which they intended to contest. Nearly 300 people were arrested during the protests. Look, indiscriminate shooting. Look at that. People are angry about the government postponing elections. The government said it was necessary due to coronavirus. Yeah. But activists say this is an excuse to stop people voting. Yeah, it is. Of course it is. Looked a lot like how America acts, doesn't it? And another thing that doesn't happen in America or in the West at large. Secret police stations in other countries. That doesn't happen. A hotel in Stockholm, an estate agent's office in London, and a space above a noodle shop in New York City's Manhattan might seem like innocuous places, but they are among several locations around the world that have played host to alleged Chinese police stations. Police stations. With most of the identified facilities in Europe and North America, Chinese citizens who have fled repression at home fear they could now be ensnared by the increasingly long arm of Beijing's law enforcement. I've known about this since I was in high school, because we had Uyghur Muslims, a Uyghur Muslim population here in Sweden, or we might still have, I don't know, that was being surveilled by the Chinese state. They even had an informant. They threatened his family so that he would comply to them. His family at home, I mean. So that he would spy on other Uyghurs. But hey, America has a brutal police state, so why are you saying that China is bad?
In the US, in 2022, police killed 1,201 people. In China, that number is 0. Oh, wait, nope, I read that wrong. 0 people killed by police since 2019, a year when 2 people were killed. 2 people in 5 years.
Okay. How many unreported? Like, you don't have open... You like, it's not an open society. They're not publishing these numbers. These are just 2 confirmed. And it's even unnamed here. They didn't even identify who he was. How many people do Chinese police kill each year? Police violence in China. Right, because she's Tibetan. Of course. I mean, of course. We just saw that. The China Daily. Yeah. I'm going to trust the China Daily. Still no accountability for Hong Kong's police force. Like, they're not holding their police officers to a higher standard. It's just that their society is completely revolving around compliance to the state.
In a country with a population 4 times greater than the United States. Since 2019, US police have killed nearly 5,000 American citizens.
Yeah.
So,
horrible.
We have a more dystopian prison situation, or the most...
More dystopian prison system. More... Like, yeah, we house more, or the US houses a lot more people because it's private. But I doubt I really doubt. Like, look at this. This is not good. This is not a Like we don't have look at what are they doing here? Huh? What's happening here? What are they sewing? What is happening? What is this? Are they working? Are they working for pennies, perhaps? UK prison conditions? But this is China. Like, they're not good. They're not, like, some aspects. Oh, like From Hell. One man that Gutman interviewed, a former special officer at the... Let's just see here. Can I... Yeah. In Xinjiang. Yeah, that's not good. Said that a fellow officer once heard screams like from hell coming from a harvesting van parked at a prison execution ground. 2 years later, the prison's medical director confessed to Nijiati that organ harvesting from living human beings. I forgot about this. Organ harvesting, China prisons. How Western medics can help end forced organ harvesting in China. In China. State-sanctioned Chinese program in which prisoners of conscience, meaning they are political prisoners, are executed for their organs. Every year, an estimated 60 to 90,000 transplants are carried out as part of a nationwide industry worth more than 800 million pounds. In June 2021, the United Nations stated that the victims were religious minorities, including Falun Gong practitioners and Uyghurs, who are held in detention centers across China. These people are arbitrarily arrested, detained in camps, tortured, face sexual violence, disappear while in detention, and are murdered on a vast scale for their organs. But hey, America has more prisoners, I guess. China just doesn't classify them as prisoners.
Spied on people on Earth, and our police murder 3 people on average every single day. If that's not authoritarian, I don't know what is. And this...
It is authoritarian! It is! Does this mean... Oh, pause game, by the way. Does this mean that China isn't? What is the argument here?
This isn't to run defense for the excesses of past and present socialist projects.
Sure.
In fact, socialists are among the loudest and most well-read critics of these experiments.
Hold on. Not you, obviously.
Program Guys and I have a podcast episode specifically dedicated to the topic.
Oh, I'm gonna have to listen to that. The elves of former socialism. Oh yeah. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of criticism towards China and North Korea and the Soviet Union. Oh yeah.
And we plan to do more in the future. The point of all this is that if we're going to rightly level criticism at some states, we need to make sure to apply that standard universally. And that means starting at home rather than simply passing judgment on countries halfway around the world or that have long since passed.
What? So until, and this is Jordan Peterson shit. You're not allowed to complain of other people doing bad things until you clean your room, right?
Okay, That's the liberal part taken care of. Now it's time to have a little chat with my friends on the Western left. The right does a very good job at presenting a unified front. The capitalist class and the forces of reaction are
Right, he was talking to the liberals. Liberals agree that's authoritarian. What the fuck? Liberals complain about the prison system constantly. What the fuck? They complain. How many liberals weren't part of the BLM movement? They know. But that's not the point.
Powerful in the imperial core. The left is already on the back foot, and we have been for many, many years. This is why it's frankly absurd how much infighting goes on among the left. Social
Yeah, you're not part of the left, okay?
Democrats sniping at tankies for being authoritarian
Fuck yourself, Tanky.
doesn't do the movement any good. Funnily
Please.
enough, the label authoritarian is only ever applied to successful socialist projects.
What did I say? So the first part, again, it's not pointed at liberals because liberals aren't watching this, okay? It's pointed at socialists to use as argumentation against people complaining about China, against people complaining North Korea, or complaining about the Soviet Union, or even Russia in some cases. I'm sure. Like it's not it didn't. It's. What do you say here?
Funnily enough, the label authoritarian is only ever applied to successful socialist projects.
Successful socialist projects. Again, he thinks China, North Korea, the Soviet Union are socialist. He actually believes they're socialist.
The ones that failed were somehow more pure. But the
No. The ones that failed were often invaded, were often having outside influence over their own government, their own politics, often coming from the CIA, from America, absolutely, but also from Russia, also from the Soviet Union. I hate to be the Orwell guy, but Spain, Catalonia, the Soviet fucking Union betrayed them. They worked with the fascists. Was it Franco? No, isn't that France? Spain fascist leader. Who was that guy? Yeah, Franco. Okay, yeah. Stalin worked with Franco. In the early 1930s, Joseph Stalin was deeply concerned about the spread of fascism in Europe. Franco. On the 10th of May 1936, the conservative, whoever this is, was ousted as president of Spain and replaced by a left-wing Manuel Azaña. Soon afterwards, Spanish army officers, including Emilio Mola, Franco, blah, blah, began plotting to overthrow the Popular Front government. Spanish Civil War in July, José and then Stalin. What? Down here? What? I want to... Stalin. Kennan alleges that once Stalin had decided to assist the Spanish Republicans, the operation was put in place. The Spanish Republicans. Loyalist faction or the government faction, was the side of the Spanish Civil War that supported the government of the Second Spanish Republic against the nationalist faction of the military rebellion. The name Republican, center left or far left even, okay. The operation was put in place with remarkable speed and energy. The first load of arms and tanks arrived, and was secretly unloaded at night. Advisors accompanied the armaments. Soviet officers were in effective charge of military operations in the Madrid front. Kennan believes that the operation was originally conducted in good faith with no other purpose than saving the Republic. Was it the Republican front that betrayed Stalin betrayed anarchist Spain. The most pernicious role in all of this was played by leader of the Communist Party. Thank you. In defense of thank you. I've Marxist.com. Who took their orders from Moscow. Stalin was terrified of the possibility of a victorious workers' revolution in Spain. The example of a healthy worker democracy in Spain would exercise a powerful effect on the Russian workers, who were growing restive under the impositions of the bureaucratic totalitarian regime. It is no accident that Stalin unleashed the infamous purge trials precisely at this time, the bloody extermination of all those who had been connected with the democratic and internationalist traditions of Lenin, and the October Revolution was a one-sided civil war of the Stalinist bureaucracy against Bolshevism. It was meant as a preemptive strike to prevent the dangers of a resurgence of a Leninist opposition in Russia, inspired by the movement of the Spanish workers. Again, outside influence killed successful socialist projects. It wasn't internal problems. It was outside influence, you moron. No, they didn't fail because they were too pure. They failed because fascists cannot allow for democracy to win. It's the same reason why Russia is threatened by Ukraine. And he is threatened by Ukraine. Russia isn't. But his reign is. Because if Ukraine succeeds, what will happen in Georgia? What will happen in every other nation? What happened in Belarus, in Chechnya? What will happen inside Russia? That's the danger that he experiences. It's not to Russia, it's to him. The same thing as with Stalin.
The moment a new system takes steps to ensure the security of their people and their new project, they're labeled authoritarian. I think part of this is that
it's so disgusting that he's like, oh no, they're just securing themselves. Their success, they're just securing it. It's disgusting that he obfuscates so much about actual poignant critique here.
That there's a lack of understanding among Western self-professed leftists regarding what it actually takes to change the status quo across an entire country. Every revolution, including bourgeois revolutions like the American one, are authoritarian by default.
Yeah, because they're military. You can't do a revolution without a military, without armed conflict. And this means nothing.
Fault. Those in power will never give up their power without a struggle.
Whatever. The point is, It was Lincoln, not Washington. The point is, it happened in America. Didn't it? That's the whole point of a presidency. You relinquish your power when the people have spoken that we don't want you anymore, we want that guy. You relinquish your power. Without a gun. Hey, Christine Bosby. You step down as a politician when you lose to your opponent. America was the first nation that I know. Yeah. Despite set aside the slavery and the landowning thing, but put that aside for a moment. There were issues, but the base structure was there. That hey, we have guns, but we do not use them against ourselves. We have a democratic process where we relinquish our power without guns. When did that happen in successful socialist projects? Never. Never. And it will never happen in current successful socialist projects, okay?
They're not going to let you vote out the very system that benefits them.
Okay. Are you calling for an armed revolt against Xi Jinping? Against Kim Jong-un? No, of course you're not. Because you're a coward. Oh, sorry. You're a coward, second thought.
To understand the nature of revolution a little better, let's go back to the man himself. No, the other one. His sugar daddy. There we go. Friedrich Engels.
Oh, we're going to go to the rich guy.
Large Beard wrote a brilliant little piece called On Authority. It's like a page long. None of you have any excuse not to read it. It's linked below. But here's the part that I think is most applicable to this video. Have these gentlemen ever seen a revolution? A revolution is certainly the most authoritarian thing there is. It is the act whereby one part of the population imposes its will upon the other part by means of rifles, bayonets, and cannon. Authoritarian means, if such there be at all. And if the victorious party does not want to have fought in vain, it must maintain this rule by means of the terror which its arms inspire in the reactionists. Would the Paris Commune have lasted a single day if it had not made use of this authority of the armed people against the bourgeois? Should we not, on the contrary, reproach it for not having used it freely enough? Therefore, either one of two things. Either the anti-authoritarians don't know what they're talking about, in which case they are creating nothing but confusion, or they do know, and in that case they are betraying the movement of the proletariat. In either case, they serve the reaction. While it might not feel good.
Like I said, authoritarianism is contextual if it's good or bad. It is not a... But when we talk about authoritarian regimes, it is contextually bad. Revolutions, armed conflict, by its nature, has to be authoritarian. The military, the police, by their nature, have to be authoritarian. You can't have a voluntary or democratic process when it comes to, should we arrest the gunman who's currently shooting 50 people over there? Everyone in this room, let's have a vote. No, of course not. You need to act. But authoritarianism is nothing to strive for. Yeah, it's like I said, it's contextual. But second thought doesn't contextualize it. He's just doing a blanket statement that to prime his audience that whenever they hear it's authoritarian, they should respond with so fucking what? That's the point of this entire video.
To be called out from beyond the grave, it's so important that we understand what Engels was talking about here, because it's still true today. If a mass of people decide they're done with the current oppressive system, rise up, build something new, and then fail to protect the gains they've made, their project will be destroyed.
Yeah, I agree. But, for example, the Soviet Union, what gains did they make? Oh, we removed the Tsar and we installed another Tsar? Like, what actually changed for the workers, for the people in the Soviet Union after the revolution? What gains were gained? I can tell you what gains were gained. Stalin, the Bolsheviks, they came into power. That's the gain. That's what they were protecting. They weren't protecting people's rights. The people were still living in poverty. Oh, but we had, if you look at the living conditions of and the income of the average citizen in the Soviet Union, it rose drastically. The same happened with China. Yeah, it's called industrialization. It would have happened under the Tsar as well.
We've seen it many times throughout history. The reactionary elements in society won't go away, and people with wealth...
It just so happens. It just so happens that every democratic movement in Russia just happened to be counter-revolutionaries. Just a coinkydink, you know? Everyone who was next to Stalin in line just happened to be counter-revolutionaries. Just a weird thing to happen, you know?
Wealth and power before the revolution will still have that wealth, and will have likely fled somewhere like the US where they can agitate for military or CIA intervention. This was the case in Chile in 1973, when the democratically elected socialist president Salvador Allende failed to take preventative measures to ensure the vicious reactionary class and their US-based co-conspirators couldn't undermine them. Long story short, the Chilean right wing launched a US-backed and US-funded coup to overthrow the government, eliminate Allende, and install a fascist military dictatorship that plunged the country into recession and suffering for decades.
Wait. Let's assume. First thought experiment here. Let's assume that America didn't fund the far right-wing fascist movements in Chile. Let's assume that. Does he think they would still have gotten into power? Like, to me, when I hear about Chile and the fall of their government to fascism, I think about American intervention here. And he says so much himself. This wasn't a failure to protect yourself from fascist tendencies, fascist movements in your own population. This was the inability, because it's fucking America, to protect yourself from an outside influence.
In order to avoid this happening...
But again, he obfuscates to make the... He tries to make the Soviet Union, China, North Korea, those kinds of socialist countries seem less bad, because they're necessary steps towards a worker-controlled government, you know? That they're necessary to usher in socialism. No, they're not. Fuck you. No, they're fucking not.
A budding socialist project, or heck, any project, requires police, it requires the shutting down of reactionary outlets, the banning of certain kinds of speech. There's a reason Germany banned everything related to the Nazis, for example. It's because they wanted to keep that sentiment from spreading as much as possible.
Yeah. I agree. Absolutely. Is that a positive example? Is that a like? Do you really want to emulate that? Yeah, he's even making Nazi Germany seem less negative right now. What the fuck? I didn't think he'd go this far when I started this video. Whew.
It requires an intelligence apparatus to listen for terrorist plots, which were all too common post-revolution.
Okay. Not in the way we did it, perhaps. Not in the way America did it, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, you need to surveil for terrorism, but I mean, not in this way. But again, the reason is because China does it worse. China does it more. China does the same, but against political dissidents. And he can't accept that. Or he can't condemn that. He has to equate the two and make it look less bad.
In East Germany, the reactionaries would routinely attempt to blow up civilian train lines.
Train lines? You can, like, civilian train lines? There's no such thing as civilian train lines. It's part of the infrastructure. Like, oh my God. Like the bridge, the Crimean bridge, the Kerch bridge. That's a military target. Because what is transported on it? Goods to the soldiers. The same goes, I'm sure, if I look deep into this, I'm sure the military used a lot of those lines. I'm sure what the government did was probably just hook up their carts to civilians being transported, civilian transportation trains. They just hooked them up at the end and had them move along, you know? Of course you can target those. That's military targets.
Requires prisons to keep these people off the streets. And historically speaking, the socialists have been much better at using prisons for rehabilitation rather than just packing human beings away to rot like we do in the US.
Notice. Yeah. The US packs them into rot. Absolutely. The US isn't the only Western nation. Norway has the peak, the pinnacle of prison systems currently in existence. Every nation with a sensible political body would look at what Norway's doing and go, we should emulate that. But that's, again, not his point. He's just trying to say, hey, America is this bad, so why are you complaining about Chinese organ harvesting of political prisoners when the police are they're shooting journalists in America? So don't complain about China. They are arresting some journalists. They are harassing journalists in America for speaking the truth. It's I fucking hate this guy. Oh, he won't condemn it. He has a basic portrayal. He's trying to portray. Yeah, he has all. He is Keffels. I love that Keffels used to be a tanky and used to be inside these circles. Not as inside the circles. She was at the tippy top of these circles. She was so high up that she was a candidate for a political seat. And she was fed every line. Listen to her about her time as a tanky. It's a fucking cult.
These things may not be morally correct, but like it or not, they are necessary.
Don't let your morals obfuscate the necessity of political prisoners. I thought I wouldn't have to do this. George Orwell, final warning. I just released this video, but I feel compelled to show this once more.
Something like that. I think that
Or by drawing an accurate portrait of the future.
allowing for the book being, after all, a parody, something like 1984 could actually happen. This is the direction the world is going in at the present time. In our world, there will be no emotions except fear, rage, triumph, and self-abasement. The sex instinct will be eradicated. We shall abolish the orgasm. There will be no loyalty except loyalty to the party. But always there will be the intoxication of power. Always, at every moment, there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
Second thought wants you to ignore your own morals. He's telling you. I'm guessing it's orgasm there, but yeah. No, I trust me. I do not. I am a sex positive person here. Okay. I love sluts. Personally, I wouldn't get laid if it wasn't for sluts. Sluts is my favorite kind of woman. Okay? Second thought tells you don't bother yourself with morals. I said this in my last video when I talked about this. When I analyzed the words and I listen to your morals. Follow them. Listen to that voice telling you what's right and wrong. Strengthen that voice. Second thought is telling you, no, stop. Do not listen to that voice. Minimize it. Make it small. Be flexible in your morals. Am I serious about what? About sluts? About loving sluts? Oh, I love sluts. Whores? Pfft. Sign me on. I've never paid for it, but I mean, yeah, sure. If you like it, if you're a happy whore, yeah, sure, girl, go on. No, I love sluts. I am a slut. I am the biggest slut. Okay, or I was before I got my yeah. Slut to me, like, I know it's a dirty word. I know that. But it's not bad. It's life affirming. It's joyful. It's good. More sex to the people, in my opinion, you know? But yeah, I talked about strengthening your moral voice, listening to it. And here, second thought is, like, perfect contrast to what I talked about in my last video, in my last stream. Perfect contrast. Thank you for that.
And that's something that every system has agreed on. I would love nothing more than to see an alternative work, but it never has.
Because of outside influence. Like, and he's the rebuttal he's gonna come with from this. Like, if I had a talk with him, Like he said, oh, well, we have to protect our interests, and that includes protecting it from outside influence. And he said that the leaders, those who are currently profiting from the current system, will never freely relinquish that system. He said that. Sure, I agree. And I don't want to live like we had, like, how the fuck did we have liberal democracy? How did we manage that? We still have outside influence. Fascists across the world don't like our democracy. Putin is protecting himself by attacking Ukraine, by crushing their hopes and dreams of being a liberal democracy. Russia isn't threatened by Ukraine in any way, shape, or form. They're not threatened by the West at large. Putin is threatened by this. Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, Erdogan, Hungary, what's his name? Orban, all threatened by liberal democracy, which is why Putin attacked. Erdogan is housing a known criminal. I would call him a fucking terrorist who recruits child soldiers in Sweden. And he's sitting in Turkey, just laughing off with millions of dollars on his bank account. And that's why Erdogan is protecting him. That is undermining liberalism in the West. Now, of course you're not threatened by Russia. And Russia isn't threatened by the United States, is my point. There's nothing that the US would win strategically, optically, politically from attacking Putin. Nothing. But Putin is threatened by democracy. If he didn't attack Ukraine, what would happen in Chechnya? What would happen in Georgia? What would happen in Belarus? Every single country that Russia controls would start to see democratic fervor. They would start to see an uprising by the people to oust their leaders and demand open and free election. And once those nations start to roll, what happens in Russia? The same fucking thing. Democracy threatens fascism in a political sense, in a not human sense, in a metaphysical sense. But fascism threatens democracy in a physical sense by warring. But again, we're talking about Second Thought, who is telling you to ignore your moral. Oh, yeah, that's my point before I got distracted. That was my point. Democracy. How did we get democracy in the West? If power never relinquishes its power. In America, yeah, they had a war. They had a war of independence. Sure. Absolutely. They were occupied. They were not giving representation, but they were being taxed. So they said, fuck you, King George. come and fucking get it. But then, was George Washington the first president? He was, wasn't he? Yeah, George Washington. What happened when George Washington lost? He relinquished his fucking power. Without guns, without violence, there was no blood spill. And that is the moment in time where democracy seemed to be viable. Where relinquishing your power peacefully, listening to the people, was all of a sudden a viable option. Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark. I don't want to say Germany because of Nazi Germany, but prior to Nazi Germany, maybe. I don't know. UK, we have. I don't think Netherlands had a war. Like, I'll just pick a random Western nation. Odds are there was no civil war to get democracy. There was a fight. There were protesting. There were uprisings. But it wasn't a war to get democracy. And we're still not warring to make people step down, except for America. Except for Trump, you know, the first time in U.S. history that I can think of. Yeah, the first time in U.S. history, I believe, where a president refused to step down. But hey, listen to second thoughts.
Like it or not, they are necessary. And that's something that every system has agreed on.
It's necessary to jail, to silence, to surveil political dissidents. He's not just giving cover here to China, to Russia, to North Korea, to any authoritarian fascist regime. He's giving cover to American surveillance of its people. Despite the people they're surveilling, let's be honest here, are leftists. Nobody's looking at the far-right elements in America. Well, they've started to, but they didn't prior to Trump, especially not under Trump. It was a concerted effort to turn a blind eye towards far-right people, which is why Trump happened. And second thought is okay with that?
I would love nothing more than to see an alternative work.
No, you
But
wouldn't.
it never has.
Fuck you.
Maybe one day I'll be proven
Go
wrong.
fuck yourself.
That would be amazing. But to the people who...
I don't trust him here. I do not believe that he actually thinks this. Because again, he's doing propaganda. And I don't mean propaganda in the sense that Hassan used it against Piers Morgan. I mean the colloquial sense.
believe it is possible, you need to ask yourself how it's going to happen. We've seen what the people in Tsarist Russia had
Through democracy.
to do. We've seen what the Cubans had to do. We've seen what the Vietnamese had to do. What the Chinese had to do. What the Americans had to do to separate from the British. Your anti-authoritarianism, while I genuinely believe it comes from a good place, is handing an easy victory to the capitalist regime.
Again, contextualism. What are you fighting for? What's the goal after you've won? Should we just accept all authoritarianism? Hey, the Communist Party of Germany, they worked together with the Nazis to bring down liberal democracy. Well, I call him at the moment Hamas Anabi. I think you can get my... Like the way he refused to condemn Hamas, the way he gives cover to tankies like Second Thought, who he calls his favorite YouTuber, disgusting. And the problem is that he knows better. He's afraid to lose his audience because his audience has now become linked to tankies. I don't think Hassan believes the things he says about Hamas. Because the things or actually Taiwan. The whole, the U.S. State Department says that Taiwan is part of China. In my opinion, it's just a State Department opinion. But it's only the State Department opinion when it comes to Taiwan that he listens to. Why? Because he wants to obfuscate. He has been taught those lines. Like, oh, no, fuck that. Say it with your chest. Be honest. You're not a politician. I understand that AOC or Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib or any Western leader can't go out and say whatever they want because they are part of the ruling body. They represent government. They represent, they need to be more, not charitable. They need to be more, not obfuscation. They need to be more tactful in how they approach contemptuous subjects. But a streamer who is not part of that doesn't. So the fact that he is being so coy about his actual opinions on things, despite knowing better, because he in the past has been critical about China, has been talking positively about democracy. But now? So either he has changed his views, he has an audience capture situation that he is scared of confronting, or he's just lying. I don't know. It's hard. I used to say, oh, but it's good that like the biggest streamer or one of the biggest streamer calls themselves a socialist. That's good enough. I don't know if that's true anymore because of these things. I don't want socialism to be coupled together like it is at the moment with tankies. Him not and again, like Second Thought here is correct in some ways about authoritarianism. Like I said, it's contextual. Sending arms to Ukraine, good. Because contextually, they are fighting for their freedom. They are fighting for democracy. They are fighting for liberty. They are fighting for the right to say fuck you to Zelensky. That's what they're fighting for. Now, I like Zelensky personally. I think he has been an amazing wartime leader, and I'm happy that he is the wartime leader for Ukraine. But I still think you have the right to say fuck you to Zelensky, and that's important because you can't say that about Putin. But Second Thought, I don't think he supports Ukraine. Oh, second, I'm not. I can confidently say that he opposes what Ukraine's doing. He opposes the U.S. sending arms to Ukraine because hey, It never works, but if it did, I would support it. Fuck you, he wouldn't. Okay. The point I'm actually was doing before you made me lose my track. Where is it? Here. In this period, while also opposed to the Nazis, the KPD regarded the Nazi Party as a less sophisticated and thus less dangerous. They're not wrong that they're less sophisticated. Fascism always is. And thus less dangerous fascist party than the SPD. Now, who are the SPD? Huh? Who are the SPD? The Social Democratic Party, which they call social fascist, or they called. And KPD leader Ernst Thälmann declared that some Nazi trees must not be allowed to overshadow a forest of social democrats. In February 1932, Thälmann argued that Hitler must come to power first. Then the requirements for a revolutionary crisis will arrive more quickly. Accelerationism. In November 1932, the KPD and the Nazis worked together in the Berlin transport worker strike. Eventually, they like, oh my God, we were so fucking wrong. As they were marched into the gas chambers or put up against the wall, and the Nazis just mowed them down. They realized this, but very, very, very late. Critics of KPD accused it of having pursued a sectarian policy. For example, the Social Democratic Party criticized the KPD's thesis of social fascism, and both Leon Trotsky and the Comintern's left opposition and August Thalheimer of the right opposition continued to argue for a united front. They wanted the KPD to join them against the Nazis. Critics believe that the KPD's sectarianism scuttled any possibility of a united front with the SPD against the rising power of the National Socialists. Thälmann claimed that the right-wing leadership of the SPD, again, right-wing leadership, in this period of time, like when we think of social democrats today, we're thinking of capitalists. No. In this period of time, they were not capitalists. They were the reformist wing of socialists. They weren't nice capitalists. They were full-on socialists. They just have a different opinion in how to achieve it and opposed authoritarianism at every turn. Not at every turn, perhaps, but in broad, in statewide terms. After Franz von Pappen's government carried out a coup d'etat in Prussia, the KPD called for a general strike and turned the SPD leadership for joint struggle, but the SPD leaders again refused to cooperate. Yeah, again, citation fucking needed. This feels like from a Soviet textbook. 1930, as the party began to shift focus to the fascist threat, the KPD founded the Anti-Fascist Action. Like, just congratulations. Just a few years too late, perhaps. Like, a few years too late. Commonly known as Antifa, which is described as the Red United Front under the leadership of the only anti-fascist party. Give me a break, the KPD. In February 1933, shortly before the end of the Weimar Republic, the KPD proposed a coalition with the SPD against Nazism, which the SPD rejected. Can you fucking blame them after all that? This is so beautifully divided, like it's supposed to happen? Which part? Like this? Like the rise of Nazism? I don't... Explain yourself, woman. Explain yourself.
They want you to play by their rules. It's their game.
Right.
While I genuinely believe it comes from a good place, is handing an easy victory to the capitalist regime. They
Being pro-democracy, being pro-giving power to the people is not handing over anything to fascists, to capitalists, to conservatives, to liberals, to whatever. It is handing over the power to the people. My principles inform me quite strongly that if the only way to achieve socialism is to deprive the people of power, then we do not deserve socialism. I'd rather live dirt poor in capitalism where I have the right to speak my mind than in an authoritarian regime that controls every aspect of my life. No, that's fine. That's fine.
want you to play by their rules. It's their game. You play by their rules, you lose. End of story.
No. No. Fuck no.
One final thing that's important to note is that this anti-authoritarian stance is very much a Western thing. And I think the reason for that is that we here in the Imperial Core are in a very privileged position. We can hold these naive beliefs because we don't have any skin in the game. We're not the ones under the boot. We're not the...
Tell that to Ukraine? What? This came out 8 days ago, and he's just ignoring Ukraine? You know, what about South Africa? What about them? It wasn't a war that happened in South Africa, I mean, right? They gained democracy, however flawed of a system in general, but they gained democracy, political power to the people without a war, with outside help even. So no, this is not a privileged Western position. We just happen to have it in our past. Our forefathers, what would it be, like great-grandfather? We got democracy, our first form of democracy with some limitations and some more rights to the nobility of our country, kind of like UK still has with the two-chamber system. We got that in the 1980s. Every conscripted man was allowed to vote. In the 1980s. In 1919, every woman, no matter her conscription status, because women in the army, you know, got the right to vote. In 1922, I believe, every man, every person in Sweden, no matter their conscription status, no matter their financial status, no matter their land owning status, no matter if they're dirt poor living on the streets or if they're living in a fucking castle, got the right to vote. And we didn't have a revolution over it. We didn't fight with guns over it. And then we had like a 40-year reign of social democrats in office. The powers that be at the time relinquished their power to the people because they recognized that, hey, if we don't do that now, it's gonna be bloody. It's gonna threaten our position and status in society, and they didn't want that. And he doesn't care. He thinks, no, this is a privileged position from the West. No, fuck that. This is not a privileged position. This is a principled position.
The ones whose resources are being extracted, or whose homes are being bombed, or whose cities are being occupied by armed invaders in the name of freedom and democracy.
Okay, that's a completely different, that's a non sequitur. Completely non sequitur. The resources of China, while yes, it's going to the West, isn't being deprived by the West. It's being deprived by the Chinese state to the people. The state deprives the people of those resources. The state sells those resources to the West. South Korea used to be the same. It used to be a fascist nation. It used to be a fascist nation under the control of America. The same goes for Taiwan. It's not anymore. They have democratized. They have advanced beyond just selling their labor for the West. They control their own resources now. Now, it's a hellscape, at least in South Korea, of course. That's the... If you really want to criticize capitalism, go to South Korea, okay?
We have the luxury of condemning others because we've never been on the receiving end. Think for just a moment what it would be like if your neighborhood was occupied by a foreign military force.
Ukraine.
Doing unspeakable things to your friends and loved ones, taking your belongings, burning homes, torturing people in the name of national security. What means would you resort to?
What are you talking about, second thought? What are you talking about? That's just the necessary thing you have to do to ensure that the people do not get another idea. You know, you just have to do that in order to ensure that the system is upheld. It's just a necessary measure. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just necessary. You know, what are you talking about? Why are you talking about this in negative ways? When you've spent the entirety of this video telling me that I shouldn't complain about it.
In that situation. I can't answer that for you, but it's something to think about. I know this has been kind of a...
Yeah, again, tell that to a fucking Ukrainian. The Maidan revolution. Are they... Like, they paid in blood for their democracy at that point. Russia couldn't allow it, so they invaded. Back then. They made claims about Ukraine targeting Russian speakers, targeting Russian ethnicities. There's no proof of that. In fact, Prigozhin, as he was turning towards Moscow with his army, admitted as much. He said there was no proof. They've been lying the entire time. The Defense Department is lying to Putin about the situation in the eastern regions of Ukraine. He admitted as much. Igor Girkin, who's now in jail because he criticized the state, admitted that in Crimea, they rounded up the leaders, the democratically elected leaders, to force them to vote in favor of secession to Russia. Like, we know this. Russia denied it for a long time, but they did. They are currently fighting for it, and we are supporting them. If you want to know what you would have done, if you wanted to know what you would have done in Nazi Germany, you're doing it right now. You're doing it right now.
A heavy video, and for a lot of you, I'm sure this is the first time you've been asked to look at your home country more critically. If you're interested in learning more about any of the stuff we've talked about, there are links in the description. We all have a responsibility to choose our words carefully, apply labels correctly, and hold our own nations to the same standard we expect others to meet.
But again, you don't want us to use labels correctly. You've obfuscated everything down at the beginning here about, let's see here. Here, secret police, where are we at? 2029. Secret police. No? Come on, give me.
We don't have secret police, we have plainclothes officers.
Which is not the same thing. Again, you said use the labels accurately. What do you say here? 2029.
Has been kind of a heckly. And for a lot of you, I'm sure this is the stuff we've talked about. There are links in the description. We all have a responsibility to choose our words carefully, apply labels correctly.
Apply labels correctly. But that's not what you're doing here. Because a secret police is about political dissidents, about targeting your political opponents, making sure that the people are scared at every turn to speak openly about the state, about the leaders, about the rulers, about the dictators. Plainclothes officers are about criminals, are about people spying or waiting, or not spying, surveilling or not alarming people doing criminal acts, not political acts. Which, sure, that's criminal in China, but that's also bad. And also, secret police, you will never know that they are cops. If you're a neighbor with a secret police, they won't tell you. If you're a neighbor with a plainclothes officer, you'll know that they are an officer, okay? They will wear that with pride.
We don't have gulags, we have...
And again, detention centers are not gulags, they're not forced. You can call them concentration camps, because that's what they are. They're not gulags, they're not work camps. That's for the regular prison, where there's slavery. And sure, here, slave labor and penal labor, yes. I agree. The one thing. But that's like leftism 101? That's liberalism 101 even? Like, you won't hear a liberal go, no, we should keep slavery as long as they're prisoners. Or you're gonna hear, but there are gonna be few neoliberals, yeah. But not your standard liberal. State media and news are not the same thing. State media, stenographer for the state. Enforcers of state propaganda. News, you can call it corporate news. Because I think the news is like state media. Yeah, that you can call that news source, news outlets. But if you want to be poignant, if you want to be specific, you'd call it state-run media, state-controlled media. You'd call Western media corporate media. Dictatorships, democracy, go fuck yourself. Seriously? Like, that's... You can complain about democracy being used to America today, because I agree. I'd say it's a form of democracy, but it's got its issues. It's got big issues. And so does every democracy. Like, sure, but dictatorship? No, go fuck yourself. That's not being careful with your labels. That's not labeling things correctly. That's being...
There are links...
obfuscation. That's being a propagandist.
In the description. We all have a responsibility to choose our words carefully, apply labels correctly, and hold our own nations to the same standard we expect others to meet. Maybe it's time we retire.
I agree. I guess my standard is a bit higher than yours, though. Second thought.
Retire the word authoritarian and try to engage with the
Wait,
fact.
wait.
Maybe it's time we retire the word authoritarian
No.
and try to engage with the facts more precisely, more honestly, and in good faith.
Or, idea. We keep the word authoritarian because it's useful. It's very descriptive of the thing we're criticizing here. Or not necessarily describing, but we don't use it wrongly. Like, can we instead use it correctly instead of retiring it?
This is a really interesting topic when you dig into it, and as you might expect, vaguely using words like authoritarian isn't just a problem in one corner of the political arena. So I just wanted to take a second to show you how prevalent that vague language is even among mainstream news outlets, with today's sponsor, Ground News.
I'm not gonna give you that sponsorship because I have to end stream. That was longer and more painful than I actually expected. Damn, how long did I go for this? Like, it's hours. Oh, it's over 2 hours that I spent on this 21 minutes. I stretched it out to 2 hours, apparently. Oh my God. Welcome to the chat, by the way, Christine Bosby. Thank you for being here today on this slow day, it seems. But that's... I really can't stand second thought, especially after this video. But it's telling what I said earlier, what I showed earlier. Let's see here. What is it? Where is it? Here we go. PMC Wagner, whatever. The Prigozhin private military, private army, mercenary army that has ravaged Africa, that have ravaged Ukraine, uses sledgehammers against not only prisoners of war, but against its own people, against its own rank, if they refuse to follow orders. The deprogram pod, which Second Thought is part of, sells this patch. It makes so much more sense now when he is such a fucking moron when it comes to language.